we've got two great presentations today. They both deal with trust. The first one is about trust and identity management. And our presenter is Mr. Dino Cataldo Del Acacio. I hope I got that right. Maybe it's Delaccio.
Delaccio. Thank you, Will.
Delaccio. Perfect.
No
Thank
problem.
you, Dino. He is the United Nations Digital Transformation Working Group lead. He designed and implemented a global solution for the United Nations using biometrics and blockchain for proof of identity, existence, location, and transaction log, which is the audit evidence. And he also leads the GBA Identity Management Group. And he coordinates best practices and lessons learned across all UN programs, including the World Health Organization, the World Trade Organization, the World Food Program, and many others.
Thank you very much, William, for the kind introduction. So I don't have much to add to what you already said about me. Indeed, I have leading the Digital Transformation Working Group of the United Nations System, and my day-to-day job is to be a Chief Information Officer at the United Nations Pension Fund. And for the due disclaimer, just want to clarify that I'm participating in the activities of GBA as a professional member, therefore my personal capacity. So as William said and Gerard introduced before, the topic of today, one of the topic of today is about identity management, mentioning what is the value proposition of identity management and blockchain, and what are some real case examples, and what is also specifically the purpose and the mandate, if you will, of this working group that has been created within the GBA Association. So very briefly, as Gerard alluded to, there is a link in the chat. There are additional information on the website, so I will not spend too much time about speaking about the GBA, because you can find all those information online, or you can definitely hear from members that have been part of the activities of the GBA for a long time. But simply to highlight that it's a non-profit member organization. There are several benefits in being part of the GBA. And also the fact that the GBA is really focused on creating thematic working groups that bring together world-renowned experts and create opportunity for all of those who like to participate and share both experience, idea on how to improve and move forward the agenda of blockchain. There is, as I just mentioned, a dedicated working group that has been created, has been established for identity management, like other working group that you will be able to find on the website. There is one on the energy sectors, there is one on voting and health, and so forth and so on. So very important and relevant initiative that bring together subject matter expert, but also that offer the opportunity for those who want to learn more about this topic to really join forces with those who have hands-on experience in this environment. There are events, as William alluded to, some are bi-weekly, some are weekly, some are monthly. In this specific case of the Identity Management Working Group, we are meeting every week on Wednesday from 9 to 10 Eastern Standard Time. So let's start by highlighting and mentioning the value proposition of using blockchain in support of identity management or digital identity. There are, of course, some subtle distinction here. That's why I put the two terms together. And of course, for those who would like to take this offline, we can speak more into the details. But first and foremost, I wanted to share this slide that comes from the Decentralized Identity Foundation, which recognize as part of the studies and the research that they conducted that although blockchain and distributed ledger technology are not perfect, they are, as of today, the best and the most stable approach to support production-ready system in support of identity management system at the large scale. So I thought that it was very relevant and important to start sharing some reliable input from credible and established organizations such as the DIF. Here, I'm going to share with you additional slide that basically introduce the concept of what is the role that blockchain can play in the larger domain of identity management. So this is an article on consensus that highlights and focuses the concept of access, the concept of data and security, and the concept of fraud vis-a-vis identity. And the reason why I introduce and I capture this slide is really because ultimately it comes very close to my environment. Here we have the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals that specifically in the goal number 16, which is about promoting peaceful and inclusive society for sustainable development, emphasize the role of identity. And indeed, one of the targets within the goal 16, which is the target 16.9, is about by 2030 to provide a legal identity for all, including, of course, at the very beginning our life, which is at the moment of birth. So, and here on the right side, you see also other icons that speak about the issue that today exists when it comes to identity. For example, just to mention one amongst the various icons, the various topics that you see on the right side of the screen, there is a record of 100 million people that are being displaced every year. And one of the biggest issues that is caused by this displacement is indeed about the fact that they cannot prove who they are. So hence the concept and the hope that the use of technology such as blockchain can resolve, can prevent, and can help in this domain. And here again, just to further reaffirm the importance at the very highest level of governance of the United Nations, there is a resolution of the General Assembly, so hence the body that represents the entire 193 countries, that already in 2019, with a resolution of the right to privacy in the digital age, basically reconfirmed the critical role that identity, and in particular digital identity, is now more and more important. So this is just to serve as an introduction to fundamentally frame the conversation as to why it is important to address the possibility, the potential that a technology such as blockchain may have in supporting the establishment, the design, and ultimately the deployment implementation of digital ID solution. So let's look very briefly at the benefit. So in terms of benefit, as we all know, first and foremost, there is a concept of decentralization, because the blockchain offers the benefit of not having data stored only on a central location, and therefore basically prevents the typical common issue of having a single point of failure. We have, of course, also the concept of immutability and the fact that being tamper-proof, the blockchain can ensure authenticity and integrity of the data that are stored, which, of course, in the domain of digital identity is critical for the user and also for the verifier and the validators. We have the concept of transparency. Again, the blockchain is definitely a suitable tool and platform here to allow, to enable, for example, entities or also the private sector to track the history of the digital identity of individual, but not only of individual, because as we know, digital identity can also be associated with asset, can also be associated with organization, and so forth. We have, very importantly, and again, this derives also from the good work done by the Sovereign Foundation, by the DIF, the Digital Identity, the Decentralized Identity Foundation, vis-a-vis the concept of self-sovereign identity. So it's being proven, and indeed, in my case, I actually use it for the solution that was deployed by the UN Pension Fund, this concept of self-sovereign identity, where blockchain can enable individual to have a full control over their personal data and give them the ability to determine, decide where and not to share and what to share vis-a-vis their transaction. And then, of course, we have also the concept of the interoperability. The fact that the blockchain here on the right side of the screen, I extracted from the W3C the specific goal that they have defined in the creation of this component of the decentralized identity called the DID, or decentralized identifiers. One more domain where, again, blockchain can be a positive force in supporting digital identity, it's access control. For example, with smart contract, it is possible to identify and to determine when access to resources can and should be granted vis-a-vis specific attribute and credential. So we've seen the benefit. Now, very briefly, I'm going to walk you through very few examples that represent solutions that have already been implemented. First and foremost, allow me to present my own solution. This is, as William kindly introduced, this is a solution that was created by the UN Pension Fund in order to make sure that the organization pays beneficiaries that are still alive. One of the biggest constraints, the limitation or challenge of the UN Pension Fund is its uniqueness. The fact that we are a pension fund with more than 84,000 members, beneficiary, dislocated around the globe in more than 190 countries. And the problem of determining whether someone is still alive or not was always a question by the governing body, by auditors, oversight bodies, and so forth and so on. Because until now, for the 70 years of existence of the pension fund, this process was conducted, was verified by using a manual form, by sending through postal service 190 countries a piece of paper that had to be signed and returned by the beneficiary. And of course, you can imagine not just the problem of delay or no receipt of this form, given that sometimes some postal service may not work as expected, but also the exposure to potential fraud and forgery of the signature. So hence the creation of an application that uses biometrics and that records each of the transaction, each of the steps that are performed on the immutable blockchain in order to prove evidence to our stakeholders, governing body, auditor, oversight body, and so forth. There are other solutions, commercially available solutions. Yes, yes, please.
Just we're about 1/3 through the slides and at the halfway point, just for pacing.
Perfect. Thank you so much, William. I'll try to make sure that I remain within the allotted time. Thank you so much. Other solution, for example, the Earth ID, also a solution that is being developed and implemented by an organization which is a member of the GBA. Here you have links and information for further research for those who are interested in following further. We have big players. We have IBM that specifically created a blockchain platform in support of digital identity and credentials. So definitely very reputable and credible organization. We have other solutions, for example, in India that have been created specifically to support e-government procedure, or in the world of education, for example, for university, in order to confirm the validity of academic degrees. So this is the future tech solution. And there are many others. And indeed, here I extracted from the GBBC, the Global Blockchain Business Council, one of their study that they specifically conducted over the digital identity, and that identify commercially available solution from all these organizations that you see here represented on the slide. So we went through the benefit, we went through case of real implementation. However, nothing, of course, it's immune of challenges. And here, let's look also at challenges. Of course, as we know, Still today, some blockchain, although mechanisms have been implemented to improve their ability with different layers of operation, there is still the issue of scalability. So like in many other domains, also in the domain of digital identity, when you are dealing with fast increasing number of digital identity and associated large number of transactions, this can hamper the effectiveness and efficiency of a blockchain solution for digital identity. We have the problem of privacy because data, of course, as we know, once they're on the blockchain, are accessible to all, whether it's public or private, to all the private members of a private blockchain and permission blockchain. We have issue related to the still of the complexity, notwithstanding the very good initiative of training that even the GBA is promoting. Still, there is a requirement to have a certain level of technical expertise. We have issue with regulation. Of course, digital identity is affected by different jurisdictions. So identify solution and a mechanism that can compromise amongst all the different jurisdiction and legislation can be a challenge. Issue, of course, adoption, because again, blockchain is still falls under the domain of new innovative technology, so it's not common and familiar to everybody. And of course, the issue of centralization, because notwithstanding the attribute that we looked at before, vis-a-vis the fact that the blockchain are by definition decentralized, the implementation of a solution for digital identity on top of a decentralized blockchain sometimes does create unintended or necessary centralization for the application itself of the solution. And of course, we also sometimes we have issue of interoperability, because given the existence of multiple different protocols, sometimes these protocols do not automatically communicate with themselves. So where do we go from here? This is fundamentally the mandate of this working group, is to work with the many identity management organization, framework associations. Some of you, as you've seen in the previous slide, are very well known, the DIF, the W3C, and so forth and so on, in terms of trying to create a common protocol to identify, as I mentioned before, not just people, but also places, organization, in order to make sure that we are protecting the privacy and security of the individual. And indeed, here you can see from this slide some of the main actors that are already in different subdomains. There are those who work in the ideation and design, incubation, refinement, standardization. So you have the NIST, the W3C, ISO, DIF, and so forth. So now we go into the part which I hope and I think that I should not go into too many details. And this is about the signature deliverable so far of the GBA, amongst many others. But fundamentally, the blockchain, the BMM model, definitely represents one of the most important outcome of the work already done. And to mention this, and to mention this component, that try to address in a comprehensive and complete manner all the different aspects of the blockchain. However, to say that we have already, I was part of the team that developed the BMM, we already identified that in certain areas there is a need to supplement the BMM, such as in the banking and finance domain, in the healthcare, voting and gaming, and identity management is indeed one of those domains where we are thinking, and this is going to be in the plan of work of this working group, is to create and document a supplement to add those specific control objectives, those specific requirement expectation vis-a-vis the use of blockchain for identity management. This is just an example of the leaders that are already members of this working group. And Gerard was kind enough to create a QR code that will enable you or whoever is going to access this presentation, which, by the way, it's accessible through the gbaglobal.org website, so that you can retrieve the detailed information of these leaders. This is this meeting schedule for 2023. Here we are in February speaking about identity management, immediately after me about voting and election. And this is the next conference that Gerard alluded to. And here, by scanning this QR code, you can have access directly to the file. Thank you for attention. If you have any question, we can either take it online now or offline at any other time. Thank you so much. Thank you, William.
Great. Thank you, Dino. Very, very insightful. What I noticed is that despite and notwithstanding some obstacles, huge amount of promise in what that can deliver. So thank you again, Dino. I can also say for the blockchain maturity model, our company is going to be getting its accreditation probably in the next couple months. So very good deliverable from the GBA. So I'd like to announce our next presentation. It is also along the lines of trust, but it's in regards to voting. So our presenter is Eugene Morozov. Mr. Morozov is a seasoned CEO with expertise in blockchain and decentralized finance. Eugene has hands-on experience in financial services, real estate, technology, e-commerce, healthcare, blockchain, and cannabis. Mr. Morozov is also a co-founder of several projects, including Dequity, Everscale Academy, DeAudit, DeTrace, and Domize. He is also a voting working group leader at the Government Blockchain Association. But I'll hand it over to Eugene now.
Thank you very much. So first of all, many thanks to Gerard for putting us all together. Michael for the intros. I happen to know about Softcare a bit, so we should talk more about partnering. And Dino, of course, thank you very much for your pioneering and breakthrough work at the United Nations, which helps enormously. I cannot overestimate how important it is for global adoption of any new technologies, that the fact that they're being introduced by reputable and globally recognized authority, right, which have United Nations clearly belongs to that list with its sister organization. So what you're doing is very, very important for other projects as well. Once digital decentralized identity has been established, and there is a unique association of a live person and the digital identity, whether that being in the format of self-sovereign format or a government-run list, but that allows us to apply that identification in a variety of other means, in a variety of other projects. One of those is voting. So once let's assume that everybody who is eligible to vote does have a digital identity, for example, through the mechanism that Dino introduced, it opens a variety of further possibilities. And the critical part is trust. It's very, very important to understand that the fundamental importance of what Dino is doing is establishing trust in something digital. So once that has been achieved, and I think Dino and his colleagues are well on the way of doing that through through UN, through Government Blockchain Association, through many other international organizations working on standardization and towards mass adoption of blockchain as a technology. They all focus on trust. And once we have the digital identity established, we can pick up from there and do a few more amazing things. For example, we can introduce a system that guarantees trust in voting procedures. Now, to step back briefly, obviously a group of people who are committed to improving voting got together and analyzed what's going on in different countries, but primarily in the US, and identified with the help of very advanced and amazing experts what are the core issues at the moment with remote voting, what needs to be improved, what needs to be looked at. And amazingly, on my presentation, you see very similar issues that Dino showed in his just a few minutes ago. So the things that are tempering with advancement, the things that are preventing certain solutions from being introduced. So there are certain things in the current system that are not working very well. And that is, by law in the US, at least, you must ensure permanent separation of voter bulletin and voter affidavit. So anonymity must be ensured. Today, it's very difficult to talk about any ready solutions that will guarantee, except one marvel of new technology, zero knowledge snarks, and similar technologies we will talk about a little bit later. Undue centralization, right? Also, Dina mentioned that in his presentation. Same thing here, relevant. We are aware of a lot of abuses of voting results, a lot of issues on polling stations, etc. Massive security risks, obviously, disputes, lawsuits with results verification and audit. And of course, also was mentioned, integration with other systems is traditionally a problem currently. Now, what we wanted to achieve is a protocol that will guarantee the best security and reliable performance once the ID has been established. We happen to use the cryptographic and computational science advances that were designed in the last few years. This is all brand new. And at the moment, talking about scalability, Michael? Yeah, at the moment, when we talk about scalability, another issue that Dina brought up, there are blockchains that can support up to 50,000 TPS and with transaction costs less than half a cent. That's critical to have as well. And immutability is necessary here to remove any doubt, obviously, in what has been recorded. Those are some of the critical things we need to look at in voting space. So there are technological solutions today that allow for high speed and scalability on blockchain, true anonymity through ZKP, and airtight security using advances in cryptographic science. All of that allowed essentially to create an app. The app allows you, for now on Android, to conduct, well, what we like to call indisputable elections, so that they can be guaranteeing true anonymity, useful interfaces for both admin and voter with simple user experience, and they must be designed to serve millions of voters on the same day. So that is possible today. It requires, as one of the inputs, voter verification. So this must be based on something similar that Dina was describing in terms of decentralized identity management. So there are separate roles. I will not go into details for the admin. There's very simple actions by a voter, and the app is working today. We are conducting, for now, very basic, simple elections, but they address a number of critical points. Now, any specialist in voting will confirm that the way elections are run, especially in the US, is incredibly complex. And it has many levels. It has many different requirements, depending whether it's political or commercial. Within political, there are different levels, or commercial, there are their own specifics. So I will not go into more detail right now in the interest of time, but this is something that is achievable right now. So at the moment, we have the fundamental technology that allows you, both at the core level, at the level of extras, to address critical things that are important to address all the existing problems with remote vote. And once that's done, we are hoping that this technology, with your help, with help of Government Blockchain Association and all of you here, will be spread through the world and become adopted. So we are working on that as a company as a whole, and we are certainly open to joining forces with other people working to improve Web3 space. Happy to be here.